Hi, graphic designers. In this Swiss poster project, as warm-up exercises, I'd like you to flat out copy some examples of simple, clean, Swiss style design. And go over to Google Images, and you could choose one of the posters from this Carnegie Mellon collection. I wanted to take you through a very simple one, though, by a guy who is a derivative. He goes by the name of Swissted, and I'm in Google Images here. This David Bowie, Dead Kennedys, he's doing contemporary take on classic Swiss grid design using layer blends and simple graphics. And just going to click on this one. Well, actually, I'll take it because that's a 3D version that's a little bit off. So let's see here, this one. Click on that, make it large, copy image. And what's striking about this, it's just a single type form, the letter S, and it's done in process colors of magenta, yellow, and cyan, and where they overlap with a layer blend, they form these transparent shapes through here. Very simple, very striking, and there's 3 columns here, and all lowercase in a Helvetica style font. So let's get started. So I right-click, copy image, come over to Photoshop. And I already went through this and copied it once, but I'm going to get rid of that and take you from the very beginning. So let's go File, New, and what's going to happen is it'll create an image exactly the size of what we just copied. And in this case, the poster was set on a white background. So I want to just crop that out. So click on the crop tool, and make sure this just says WH by resolution, and move in this in case you're using the same image. And next, after we crop it, is to resize this up to the final size, and this is a very important point. Because right now it's very small, and by upscaling it, it's not going to improve the resolution. But when we re-render this ourselves, it will, you'll see, be very sharp and very good. So I'm putting the width to 12 inches, and very important, the resolution to 240 dpi here. Okay, 12 by 16.9 by 240. Say OK, and notice it's still quite fuzzy. Okay, Control 0 or Command 0 to zoom out. And now we're going to rebuild this. So let's start by giving ourselves a blank new canvas to work with. So I click the New Layer button, then click I on your keyboard for your eyedropper, click on the background, and then the letter G for your bucket tool. If you're seeing the gradient tool, you can hit Shift G, and that'll toggle between the bucket and the gradient. So now I'm going to bucket in that putty color, and it fills layer 2. Next, turn the eyeball off so we can see what we're doing again. And click on, let's see, Control or Command R to bring up your rulers if you don't have them already, and set up your margins. This T this is actually a little sloppy, should be aligned with the edge of the Thursday. So I'm going to move it over to the Thursday, and then move the T over to this line once the time comes. And here, and here. I'm going to set this twice, and bring one right here. Good. So the margins are all set up. Next, click on the Type tool, come down to the bottom, and at the top in the options bar with the Type tool, choose Arial as your font, and bold, and the size, put it at 1200, and then type a capital S and swipe over it to highlight it. And then in the options here, I'm going to click there and click on the S and then check mark. So I clicked on the S of the poster that we're copying and then say OK. All right, and then check mark and move it over there. And now I'm going to turn the eyeball off. And the reason for that is as we make changes to the second F, this first one will be in the way and mess us up with our type tool. Okay, so rinse and repeat. Start in the middle at the bottom, type capital S, highlight it, click on the magenta now box in the top options, and then click on the yellow in the poster and say OK. Check mark. Letter V for your move tool, move it into position. And it's not an exact match for the font because we're using Arial and the poster is using Helvetica, but it's close enough. So again, turn off the eyeball and click on your type tool. Come to the bottom, type another S, and highlight it. And this time we're going to click on the yellow box at the top and then click on the cyan box, cyan part of the poster, and say OK. Checkbox, move tool. OK. So now what we're going to do is turn on all the layers. And notice that these layers are not transparent. They are opaquely covering everything beneath it. So as we did in our very first warm-up exercise, we come over to the layer blends here where it says normal, and starting with the very top, turn that to darken, and then click on the middle layer and do the same thing, make it darken. And notice where cyan is overlapping yellow, they combine to form green, which is perfect. And where magenta overlaps yellow, it makes red. And where all three overlap, we get black. Excuse me. Okay, so next, the last of this is just to fill in the type. So I'm going to turn off the solid layer, put black in the foreground by clicking on this little black and white icon here on the left over the foreground and background. Click the type tool, and instead of 1200 points, let's make it 120 points. So I'm going to erase 10. Click right in the corner where it just snapped back to 120 because these huge letters are taking over the whole poster. So that would be frustrating for you. So I'm going to hit escape to get away from the type tool and turn these guys off. Okay, try that again. So come on here and set this to 120. Okay, that's more like it. And type all lowercase the Smiths. And it's magenta because that's what's up here. So I'm going to click here, click black, and say OK. Now notice I should point out that I'm going to click this small icon here, and it brings open this character. And I've got my kerning set to -50, a value of -50, and that's what brought the S in, okay? If this was at 0, notice how my version is wider than the poster's version. So this is kerning it in, the -50. Check mark. Good. Next, to finish this off, I'm going to click up here on Thursday, And instead of 120 points, I'm going to choose 18. And this type all lowercase, Thursday, hit enter, and 15, 1983. And I wanted to point out that, let me zoom in on this. In the leading part, which is right over the kerning part, I have that set to 24 points. By default, with auto, it would have created a situation where this was not set as wide as the artist has originally done. See what happened here? September got pulled up. So I'm just putting in a wider leading here at 24 points. Do that with At the Venue and Victoria Street, London, and then set over 18s separately. Okay, the reason is that way because the leading is different here, so you don't have to mess around with that. So that's pretty much it. Align everything. See how I'm putting, this is so important, part of the lesson, how this sight line of this margin aligns with the edge of the T, the edge of the T. This value is a little less important because it can float in here and still be correct. So, finish it up. Oh, my S got moved. It turned small because it was highlighted when I apparently typed the Smith. So how to fix that? Click on the middle layer, highlight it with the type tool, and make it 1200 points. I'm just going to add a 0 up here. Enter, check mark, and finally, to save it out as a JPEG, you don't have to do layer flatten image, although you could to flatten it all together. Remember to put in these lines as well. But it's a high-res version, and go File, Save As, and save it as a JPEG. Okay, so JPG, and know where you're putting it, and post to the blog. You can do this poster, or you could choose this one, the Dead Kennedys. It's the same idea. It just uses a rectangle that you could pull out with the marquee tool and color it with yellow, magenta, and cyan. This David Bowie one, you do is use the pen tool and click around one of these shapes, and you have this shape. You've copied it and inverted it over here with this shape, and then there's a triangle shape, yellow, magenta, and cyan, and again you use the dark and blend mode to get these combination colors in here and set it up the same way. Try it. This one, use the pen tool and make a large triangle, and just again use the eyedropper to fill in these colors here. But if you just copy the one I just showed you, that at least you'll have the step-by-step. So do at least 2, better 3, to warm up to the process of laying out a strong, simple graphic. This was very easy, again, using the same fonts. Making a large circle by holding down Shift and Alt as you pull out the circle or elliptical marquee tool. Fill it with successive darker green in a graduated or graded excuse me, monochromatic study. Again, you can just copy the colors with your eyedropper tool and use the free transform tool with each case when you copy the circle smaller and smaller. Okay, so have fun with this. Here's another one, Mudhoney, very simple, using the pen tool, create 2 triangles and just copy it down. There are no layer blends in here. This one, Rancid, is very simple as well. So that's it. After you do the copies, then by next week you'll be onto your own original design. with an actual real event. So see you on the blog.